who have shown up so early. You guys get extra credit for showing up to class. But man, this this show's going to be pretty wild. What do you think, Kyle?
I think it's going to be pretty interesting. We were talking about it a lot yesterday with a lot of the flaws from what happened.
I think flaws is a understatement. Dude, there's
Yeah,
just
it's a
so much
big
to unpack.
major fuck up by Secret Service. Just going to put it as it is. It was a disaster. They failed President Trump.
Well, and it wasn't a failure like in the at the agent level. I mean, there are obviously
With your DEI hires that can't
yeah.
reholster their firearms.
Yeah, there are a couple things like that where you're just shaking your head, but I mean, overall, operationally, those agents are, and we'll get into all of this, but those agents are like they don't they're not making or breaking operations. They're not planning things out. They're kind of told what to do, where to go, and how to do it. So I mean, like you said, Kyle, we've been talking about this for the last two days. Like, and I've been trying to hold off conversation, like, because there's so much that you and I want to talk about.
Yep,
It's like, dude, we
absolutely.
gotta wait to talk about this on the show, so that way, like we don't run out of things to say. Which I don't think we could. That there's,
I
yeah,
mean, it's still developing. We still don't know all the information. I mean, the
right.
latest update I got was JD Vance being vice president pick, which has nothing to do with it. But then they're 70% done with the download of uh, the shooter's cell phone.
Yeah. So, for those of you guys tuning in, if this is your first time listening, this is the Fear Not, Do Right podcast. I am your host, Cade Lamb, and I am joined by our other host, Mr. Kyle Rittenhouse. Say hi, Kyle.
Howdy.
So, if you don't know what the basis of the show is, if this is your first time tuning in, the Fear Not Do Right podcast is about providing practical, kinetic solutions to complex social and political issues in order to enable a more autonomous and independent American people. And while there's a lot of $3 words in there, there's a lot, there's we're here to provide the solutions, right? Whether it be, whether that be the gospel of Cade and Kyle, or whether that be from, our many friends who are subject matter experts in their respective fields. We want to impart that wisdom with you guys so that way in your day to day, you can leave this podcast coming away with a little bit more well rounded understanding of the topics. And today, man, they really tuned it up. They really keyed it up for us on Saturday because we are going to be getting into the Trump assassination attempt that happened. Was that Saturday?
Yep, it was
Yeah.
Saturday at close to a little bit after 6 p.m.
All right. So, Kyle, just I want to hear your take of what happened. Not necessarily like the nuance of what happened, but like just point, like start to finish, right? What the course of events was.
Do you want my filtered version or my unfiltered version? That's the real question.
We'll we'll onion this. We'll kind of peel back the layers.
All right. Well, I think this was a strategic effort by some people that found a very, very vulnerable young man who was indoctrinated by the left to believe that President Trump was a terrorist and needed to be taken out. And this was done because of the rhetoric that Biden and the left has spread about him. And with Biden saying a bunch of things, borderline calling for President Trump to be assassinated. I think this could have been prevented if maybe we weren't in such a heated political climax and if Joe Biden didn't spew lies 24/7.
Yeah, there were really. I think when you look at the situation, the the opportunity started a while ago. Like the just the course of events started a while ago, and I think you mentioned something very critical there, and that's the DEI hires. What do you mean by that?
The DEI hires, the hiring people based on their race or gender or whatever else, not on their qualifications.
Yeah. And and that's another thing too is in addition to those DEI hires, because that's been happening across the DoD, Department of Justice, Department of
And
the
just to add this, because to the lefties that like to hop in and troll a little bit, they're gonna call this racist for me not supporting DEI hires. It's not a racist thing. It's called a equality thing. It's actually, in my opinion, racist to have DEI hires just because you're not hiring the best person fit for that job.
right, and it shows how critical the best person for the job is. Case in point, protect the president. Like
Absolutely.
so,
I just don't know how a roof 150 yards away went unmanned and uncovered.
I okay. So here's what I think. So with the with the opportunity that presented itself for Trump to even have a shot taken at him.
Exactly.
I think it starts with the DEI hires, but I also think that it starts with the allocation or misallocation of Secret Service agents to begin with. So one of the things that people are really speculative of and they're very harsh to criticize on is what the Secret Service was doing in regards to Trump's security. Well, in the last few months, even his Secret Service staff, his their that dynamic has changed, and Trump's people are not the ones dictating how many agents they have, who the agents are.
Oh
Those
yeah,
guys are just
I've
assigned.
met some of President Trump's Secret Service agents. The first time I went there was right after I got acquitted in November, and then the second time I went to Mar-a-Lago several months later, almost a year later. They were completely different, completely the same, and now they're completely different.
Yeah, and now there that changes your standard operating procedure too. That changes your SOP. Now, when it comes to an event like Trump giving a campaign rally, there is an advanced team that goes out before anything gets set up. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong there, Kyle.
Yep,
You've done your share of advon work. You've had advon work done for you, but there's a team that goes out and they say, okay, where are our threats? What's our known, likely, and suspected here?
absolutely, and like that spot was probably the most obvious vulnerability out of any other building around there, in my opinion. Looking at the satellite images and the videos that came out, that spot had no reason to not have somebody either on that roof as an additional cover point, or somebody watching that roof, and at the least having an officer staged there. And if there was an officer staged there, which is starting to sound like there may have been, because there's reports that an officer climbed up the ladder, suspect pointed his rifle at him, officer turned into a coward and backed down instead of putting bullets into that POS. This could have been prevented. That it 100% could have been prevented, and I think it needs to be a full investigation into every law enforcement agency there. And I don't think it needs to be the FBI investigating them.
Definitely not the FBI. And that's the problem too is
Shoot, they're the ones who probably did it.
okay, so here's I so that George Carlin clip where he's doing stand up and he's like, "Listen, there is a conspiracy group, but you don't need they're not having meetings, but everybody's like nobody's communicating, but they're all on the same page, right?"
Yeah,
I'm just kind of paraphrasing what he says, but there's that Carlin clip where he's like, "Listen, all these people are on the same page because they go to the same schools and the same institutions, and they're all on the same program. They don't necessarily have to communicate with each other. The mindset and mentality is all the same, and I think that is the biggest failure across the board, whether it be through the local PDs, the federal law enforcement guys that were there. It's like, because here's what I saw. Here's what I see when I look at that. Right, like you said, Kyle. There was a cop there who addressed the guy. There was dozens of people that saw the kid getting up onto the roof. But consider where this is at. This is 45 minutes north of Pittsburgh. It's a small town, and you have a cop whose priority is more than likely collect a paycheck, go home, do 20, cash out of retirement, and call it good, right?
Yep, absolutely. So he probably was just expecting his time and a half, extra detail, pick up an extra detail and an extra shift, nothing to come of it. Probably thought it was going to be super easy. Came up there, but at the end of the day, that officer had a responsibility and he failed and he was a coward.
But look at the climate that's the suspected climate. And if you know any law enforcement in Pennsylvania or are law enforcement in Pennsylvania, hit us like comment below and let us know what you think because give us some context here.
I'm
But
I'm I'm gonna push back a little bit, Cade. I don't think there's any context for when somebody points a rifle at you preparing to assassinate the former president of the United States. I think it's fair game, and I
right.
don't think you think about that. I think you either eat those bullets from that guy or you start laying rounds down range. You do your job.
Well, we know you do that, Kyle. So I agree with you on that because I'm the same way. Like, dude, if you bring a gun to a gunfight, well, yeah, you're gonna like I'm gonna win. I'm gonna do what I can to win the gunfight. But unfortunately, with a lot of these cops, they're worried about the optics and the politics behind taking a shot. Where it's like, oh, if I shoot this guy, what's gonna happen to like the event, Secret Service, like all these guys, like there's they have analysis to paralysis and drop the ball. So I think that was the first. So I think the first point of failure is the advon in setting the perimeter, right? That's the first point of
Absolutely.
failure.
And back to what
Second,
you're saying,
yeah,
like at the very minimum, he could have at least called out commands or, let the sniper team know that there was somebody up there.
I think they did. I think they had comms because that's another thing with Secret Service guys coming in there for something like a Trump event. They're going to have like a staging and a brief beforehand of all of the agencies, all the officers. They're going to say, "Hey, here's on who's these networks on these stations, right? If you need to get a hold of so and so, get a hold of so and so. Here are your channels." Then you also have, hey, we're going to have county guys working the perimeter. We're going to have city guys here. We're going to have city SWAT here. We're going to have Secret Service here. We're going to have CAT here. And so I think they called it up, and I think that's where the snipers are getting put in the hardest spot. They're really getting they're getting put between a dick and a hard place, Because
That's true. And I mean, there were other reports coming out that I don't know how true they are. I'm actually taking them as false. But if it is true, it's bad. It's terrible. It's definitely an inside job if it comes out as true. That the sniper had a clean line of fire, didn't take the shot until the shooter fired first shot.
yeah, so as I understand it, there are there were three sniper teams. There's the one in the video, but I think there were two additional sniper teams, and they were all tracking a beat on him.
That makes sense.
And then the sniper team that you see in that video, um, what and this is gleaning from my personal experience, right? From working overseas on deployment, from like there are command structures, right? And then you also have to consider, okay, we got a crowd of a few thousand, a few hundred people to a few thousand people below us. We got the Republican nominee for the president of the United States, former President Donald Trump, right below me, 50 yards away. And I've got a dude on a building 150 yards away. So what's the call there? I mean, justifiably, you take the shot. Like, and I mean, armchair quarterbacking it. It's like, yeah, take the shot, But what is that snipe? What are those shooting teams going through their head? They're clearly calling it up. Hey, like if it's me or if I'm on that gun, I'm calling it up. Like, hey, I got this guy. This is our probable dude with a gun on a roof. I'm gonna shoot him. And then they're gonna wait for that go ahead. Like, oh yeah, you got the guy, take him, or do not take him. So you have to fight that command, but then also you have that like personal responsibility of like, do I shoot this guy? What happens if I shoot this guy? What happens if I'm wrong and I shoot this guy? Regardless if I pull the trigger or not, the event is going to be disrupted whether or not he shoots or I shoots. So I can either wait for him to present a rifle, or I can wait for him to and get 100% PID, or I can wait for a shot to break and then take him. But you kind of get put in that position of like, dude, if I'm wrong, that screws up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that is true, but I don't know. I don't know how they could have been wrong with.
Hey Kyle, you're coming in a little broken and unreadable.
Right, that's the Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi
Uh,
has been the greatest here in Texas for the past couple weeks.
no worries.
Um, I just don't know how you have all of these sniper teams and even law enforcement on the ground. How nobody took a shot before shot was rang out. First shot was rang out because there were people on the ground calling. There's a shooter on the roof. It's on video, and pointing to the guy, and nobody does anything about it.
Yeah.
And apparently, the guy was acting suspicious, walking around the area before he went up onto the roof, and he was even law enforcement even let Secret Service know, and they were supposed to be monitoring him and watching him.
Right. So at the point of contact, right? First shot breaks. I mean, you can only do so much like as a I don't know, man. Like those organizations, like military, secret service, law enforcement, like there are legal implications to smoking a guy, especially in a sniper capacity. You got to have that PID. But once that first shot is fired, here's what I don't get is how were there 8 shots? That's what I don't understand. And
I
the
think it
I think the
was
first 3 the
seven. I think seven of them were for the shoot from the shooter, and I think one of them was from the sniper, or two from the snipers, and then
No,
one from the shooter.
I thought it was from what it sounded like there was an initial shot, then the shot report changed, so I think that was a sniper, and then there were 2 more shots, and then that second shot report had about 4 or 5 more shots. So you had like essentially 4 shots. So shooter, sniper, shooter, shooter, and then sniper, 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 sniper.
Unless there's more than one shooter that we don't know about yet, but I'm sure we would have figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'm getting at is like, because my I'm acoustic when it comes to guns and stuff. You know this, dude.
You mean
Those
autistic, right?
those snipers, the Secret Service snipers, they were up on those roofs with $27,000 rifle setups. $27,000 rifles. And I'm not saying that dollars are going to make you a better shooter, but you have a Remington 700 long action chambered in probably either 300
300
Win
Win
Mag
Mag.
or 338 Lapua in an Accuracy International chassis with an Atlas bipod, Thunder Beast can, Night Force 7 to 35 glass, spur mount, L3 Harris Mars laser rangefinder on top, and a really right stuff carbon fiber tripod. And you got one like, and that's what I was saying in like that. That's why I was kind of talking about like the whole, okay, decide, like, when do you decide to shoot? When do you take the shot? He either presents a rifle. Let's say you play it the most safe. He either presents a rifle, you have 100% PID, and then, or a shot breaks and you take him. Well,
So I
when
was
that shot
watching
breaks
the
and you take him,
videos. I
with
don't think it was the guy that was kneeling down with the large bipod
you
that
don't
took the
think so?
shot. I think it was the guy in the prone, because the guy that was prone, is his finger is the only one that goes on the trigger if you watch it zoomed in.
That almost makes it worse though.
That's what I'm saying.
Because it's like there's one, like if there's a shooter, it should be one shot. Like like if you're waiting for him to break a shot, you wait for him to break. Like say that's the thing, that's the SOP, that's the rule of engagement. That is what you're getting, and you're like, listen, got to do what you got to do. Like what? Hey man, I'm not in your head. I'm not there. But when that first shot breaks, and you're shooting a Magnum caliber at 145 yards, how on earth do you miss?
Yeah.
That's what I don't get.
It looks like he did miss too.
Well, that's
The
why they
first
would have
guy.
had to have
That
follow-up shots, and
that
that's why
makes
the shooter
sense.
had follow-up shots
That makes sense. I just don't know how the guy's head didn't turn into liquid though, taking 300 Win Mag to the head.
because he missed.
Well, no, the second shot, the one that went into through
Yeah.
the eyeball and out the neck.
Well, at that range with 338, it's traveling so fast that the
That's
round
fair.
isn't doing anything. It's just going to zip right through him.
That's true.
It's not, the round isn't expanding or anything, because I think that round, it would be like a 220 grain projectile moving at 2,900 feet per second. Like it's just screaming through whatever you're shooting.
Yeah, that is true.
But here's what's crazy is, so I did some mathematicals, right? And these are rough estimate, like these are rough numbers here, but like rounded up numbers. So Kyle, what is 1 minute of angle? Do you know?
I have no idea. I
Okay.
I am not a
Okay.
precision guy or a math guy.
Okay. So this is what's crazy to me. So, uh, did you read that they had what the shooter was shooting?
He was shooting an AR-15 5.5.
Okay. So that's what I think is super fascinating is you have this kid at 145 yards shooting what is more than likely a 16-inch AR-15 with 55 grain ammunition. The most common ammunition, I can only assume that he has 55 grain, right? I looked at
Yeah.
the weather report for Butler, PA at the fairground at the local airport there, and at that time around 2:30 in the afternoon, they had gusting winds of about 5 to 6 miles an hour. And when you look at the picture of Trump, they have that big flag in the background, and it's registered, and it's kind of about that 5 to 6 mile an hour crosswind of the shooter's trajectory. Now, at 145 yards, okay, 1 minute of angle is 1.5, and it's basically an inch and a half. So
I
with a
think he
five,
had his shot lined up correctly, and Trump turned his head right at the perfect time.
you think so?
I think so. I think it was off by like a quarter inch from his original spot based on the trajectory. But
Well, with a 5 mile an hour wind, it would have pushed him off 4 inches.
that that makes sense from where it would have landed a little bit. Like Trump has a pretty big head.
Well, I mean, after this, it's only going to get bigger. I mean, mine would too if I got shot in the head.
Oh, not that type of big head.
Hey, I'm not hearing you come through.
Did my there we go. Is my audio there?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I think if Trump didn't move his head at that exact moment, he wouldn't be with us today.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think that was part of it.
I mean, I think he has a cool story now, and I'm hoping that he gets a 5.56 earring and puts it in there in the ear.
Are you talking like a Mr. T kind of earring?
Yeah, but where he got shot, I think that would be badass if he not embrace it, but got an earring and wore it around like that.
Well, dude, like that's the other thing though is so what is Trump? What do you think Trump's move is after this? Aside from getting an earring, what is Trump's move after getting having an attempted assassination?
Well, I hope it's unity, but I hope it's not. I hope he doesn't use this to take away guns. I really hope he doesn't because I could see it. The last president who had an assassination attempt against him, he had an assault weapons ban. He got that through, and I'm worried about that. As we know from the past, President Trump wasn't the greatest on firearms, and that's just the truth.
I agree.
And I'm worried that this may change things, and if elected, he's not going to be great on firearms again.
But
That's my
I
one
could also see
concern.
it. I could see it going the other way too, where he's
I
like,
hope,
listen,
I hope so.
where it's like, listen, like it doesn't matter. Guns saved my life, kind of thing.
Yeah, guns that were given by the government. So maybe he would just be like, only government can
Maybe.
have guns. I'm hoping not, but I we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Well, I mean, regardless, he's not going to take away like that. He ain't taking away nothing because one, I already got mine, and it's going nowhere. Like that whole come and take it
Dude, I
is.
was in such a bad boating accident a couple months ago, and I had all my guns on my boat with me.
Oh, that's tragic.
It's so tragic.
Not me.
Oh, well, I just from your perspective, Cade, with being in the military, I know you've done security ops before. What are your thoughts? Because I have pretty strong opinions about this.
Mhm.
I think it's a badass photo, but I think Secret Service should have picked Trump up when he was like, wait, 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 and had his entire body exposed to the crowd. What are your
Ye-
thoughts on that with Secret Service, one, not forcing him out of there and just like, come on, come on, come on, come on, we have to go. And then the female saying, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that again, it goes back to that standard operating procedure. And again, and you know how he was talking about like, oh, I need to get my shoes, I need to get my shoes or whatever. So when they tackle him, right, protect the president, and it's a game we used to play all the time in the military. We would like we would all target one guy, and we'd all put our finger against our ear like we're Secret Service, and wait for the unsuspecting guy not to notice. And then once we were all kind of like gathered around him, we'd tackle him and beat him up and be like, protect the president. Um,
That's hilarious.
but so when you have a team, right, however big or small, you have a standard operating procedure. I don't know what the Secret Service's SOPs are, but what it seems like they were doing. Why would his shoes be off or anything like that? Well, the man just took a bullet to the head, right?
Oh yeah.
Initially, it's cat team is going to do their thing. They're going to secure the area. Like they're returning fire. Other auxiliary agents and law enforcement officers, they are like, okay, where's the next threat? Like, there's one threat. Where's the next threat? Where's the immediate
Oh,
threat?
absolutely. And you have to think, you can't stop watching Buddy who just got domed on the roof, because
Right. Until you have a guy up there and they put
until
cuffs on him.
he
Even if he's dead, they put cuffs on him.
oh,
But
100%.
but then for President Trump, right? If it's me, right, and this is just in my mind, if my job is, if I know, hey, I've got guys that are going to take care of whatever threat is out there, right? If it's a lone shooter, whoever it is, if there's a shooter, I've got guys who are going to take care of that. My job is to protect the president and put a body on him. First, people are forgetting who they're protecting, right?
Hmm.
It's not like tackling one of my buddies when we're all walking around with a finger on our ear. This is a old man. Like, he's a man in his late 70s. You're not going to tackle him. You
I
can't
don't
just
know. That is a tough dude.
he got shot in the head. He's tough.
I
But
mean,
you
he
can't create more injury
he
by
can
tackling him.
take he can take a hit.
He's built like a linebacker.
Yeah, like if that was Biden, Biden would have had several broken hips, and not several, but he would have broken a hip and several broken bones if Secret Service had to tackle Biden to the ground.
Yeah. But then I think, okay, you have him on the ground. You have your right. You have your response guys that are out there taking care of it. It's okay. Get a vehicle as fast and as close to you as you can possibly get, right? And then immediately you're doing a blood sweep. He's shot in the head, right? Is it just the ear or is it his head? Is he shot anywhere else? You're doing an immediate blood sweep, like you're
Yep.
checking everything. You're getting under the jacket. You're taking
You're
his
cutting
red
those
tie
clothes
off.
off as soon as you get into the Tahoe.
Yeah, like you were doing a full blood sweep, making sure that nothing else is wrong, that he wasn't hit anywhere else. That's why his shoes are off. That's why, listen, if it takes an extra second to do an immediate blood sweep on the ground, like do an immediate blood sweep on the ground while your guys are, getting the threat taken care of, get him into the car, and then, you know, get out of there. Because
Yep.
again, because if your man's dead, like if he got domed with that round, well then, no one to protect now. He's dead, and
Yeah,
that changes your course of action.
at 100%. You know how bad it would have been if he did get shot and killed Saturday, Cade?
Okay, so I've heard a lot of commentary on this, and I've been I've not asked you this as we've talked about doing the show today. I've not asked you this. What is your thought on an alternative timeline, right? What happens if Trump gets shot in the head and he goes down and we're planning a funeral for him?
World War fucking three.
World War III.
Civil War. It's going to be a civil war. It's going to
Civil
be
War.
bad. It would be bad.
All right, break that down for me. So like when you say Civil War, what does that look like to you in regards to Trump getting assassinated?
Um, well, if Trump got assassinated, he passed away. I see all of I just see nothing good coming out of it. I see the left, that people seeing that as the left's attempt, and then people revolting, people going and fighting back and trying to take over in a way. That's what I see. What am I doing? I'm getting in my car and I'm going to my friend's ranch.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of the city.
So, you're up in Dallas, right?
Yep,
Okay, so you're not in Austin. That'd be bad news if you were in Austin.
that would probably be the safest spot. I'm kidding. No, it's the capital of Texas. So
So, I mean, I see. I mean, fortunately, we don't have to know what that ends up looking like. But again, do you think that like conservatives would actually be taking to the streets and getting out there and being like up in arms about it?
I think so.
You think so?
What are your thoughts on it?
I think that there were a lot of people holding their tongue, talking about, people who feel like, how could you miss, right? There were a lot of people that thought that, and they just didn't say anything or said the politically correct thing.
Oh yeah, I mean the guy was a good shot. The shooter on the roof that took the shot, like
Not really.
not a great shot, but he he hit the president and from an elevated position 150 yards away, which is not a very hard shot to take at all.
I
But
mean, yeah, I've made a lot harder shots. I'll say
we both have, but
that.
it's it's not very like you have to know a little bit what you're doing to hit something 150 yards away. Like
Yeah.
he prepared a little bit for this. There was a lot of planning and prep that went into this, and like I said, I strongly believe if Trump didn't move his head, it would have went right into the back of his head.
So when it comes to the response, like if Trump gets schwacked, I mean, they've been taught, like there's kind of been grumblings, right? This salt in the air kind of feel that
Here's
people have been
another
talking
thing I
about.
see as well if he did get assassinated. I
Hmm.
see mass riots from the left in celebration.
Yeah,
You know how they do it in, ironically, Pennsylvania and Philly when they win a game,
that's
a
good.
sports game?
Yeah. Yes, I can see that.
I have a good friend of mine who is watching the stream. He's from Philly. I like to make fun of him for it.
My brother served a Mormon mission in Philly.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that, you know what? I think you're hitting it right there. I think that's where that conflict starts, is either one group or the other. Either it be your never Trumpers, your your Antifa types, if you will, and your like when I say MAGA, I mean your diehard MAGA people that are going to make some kind of public display, some kind of, display of like, hey, this, we're not cool with this, and we want to, this is making their voices heard and being met by whatever opposition, whether it be MAGA or Antifa. They're going to meet each other in a public place, and they're going to scrap. And
Yeah.
I think that that scrap quickly turns into a George Floyd type scenario, depending on what the federal investigation, what comes of the federal investigation of how Trump is assassinated, things like that. Like, dude, think about this:
Let me
half the
ask you
country
this,
burned down
Cade.
over George Floyd. Think about what happened with George Floyd. That was just some dude on crack.
What do you think happens if it comes out that this was a inside job?
Well, I don't think. What do you mean by inside job? Let me ask you that.
Like there was somebody on his team that was coordinating with the shooter, or this was directed up because I don't think it was like ordered by Biden. A lot of people think that this was ordered by the government. I'm talking about inside job that he had somebody on his team that knew about this and let this lapsed. What do you think happens in that case?
Um, if that comes out, that's a thing, dude. Well, it adds to the investigation, and I think that I think there's nothing good that comes of that in any sense, because on one hand, you then have to be a skeptic of every single federal agent, of every department, everywhere,
I already
because
am.
like, oh, I mean, don't talk. This is good legal advice. Don't talk to the cops.
Invoke
But
your fifth.
yeah,
I mean, your dad's a cop. I have a lot of friends who are cops. Always invoke your
yeah,
Fifth Amendment rights. They're investigating you for a reason.
they will tell you don't talk to cops. But I think that it's bad in both ways because on if it's inside job like you're saying, where someone within Trump's detail was facilitating that, whether it be a man on the ground or a special agent in charge or anything like that, because there what gives me some speculate or some skepticism and like or doubt is when those sniper guys like this is just how that world works. Those snipers on that team, that counter assault team is saying on the radio, I have him in my sights, I can take him now. And someone on the other end of that radio said no. Who is that?
It,
And whether or not that's inside or not, that's a problem. But if it is an inside thing where it's like that guy was like, "Oh yeah, like we're gonna, I'm part of the scheme here." It's it's detrimental on several fronts because then it indicates that the entirety of the Clinton machine, Obama machine, Biden machine is so brazen, desperate, uh, they're gonna they're so brazen and desperate that they're gonna kill their opponent. Like, well, that just can't stand, and that elicits the an equal and opposite response of like, hey, you can't be in charge of this country if you're gonna go out like smoking politicians. Like, you're gonna
yep,
go out and kill your political opponent. Like, okay, you're fired.
yep, absolutely. And I'm hoping because most government radio frequencies are recorded, and I'm hoping that then all of the frequency, if it was recorded and backed up from their dispatchers and Secret Service dispatch, that it's released because I think the public has a right to know of everything that was being said and communicated between law enforcement and state officials.
And they do have, at least when I was in the 82nd Airborne, we had comm systems that were being recorded, and we were pissed about it because then we couldn't tell LTs to go fuck themselves. So, you know, I'm sure that the Secret Service cat team has a log of their comms on a presidential detail like that.
Yeah, it has to be like that stuff. There, it has to be backed up. I mean, like there's a reason why they tell you to watch what you say over the radio.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think they'll make it public? And do you think they should make it public?
Absolutely. The public has a right to know. No matter the good or the bad, the public has the right to know what happened and exactly what happened.
Now, do you think that the shooter was one of these like FBI farmed kids where like how the other school shooters where they go into like a chat room and they radicalize them pretending to
No.
be their waifu girlfriend, or do you think he was a little bit more of a hey, he was approached by men in suits and been like, "Hey, you're gonna you're gonna do this."
I think he probably listened to the Democrats way too much. And then when Joe Biden said it's time to put a bullseye on him, he took that seriously.
So you think it was like almost like a psyop, just
I
the
wouldn't
result
say
of rhetoric?
psyop. I don't think it was like a deep state plant. I think it was like a legit 21-year-old, 20-year-old young man who fucking went insane and was indoctrinated by the left. I think he was trying to send a message. You look at every single person who assassinated presidents before or attempted to assassinate presidents. Their names are in history books and they're marked down forever.
So one of the thoughts that I have is it's like when you look at it from a, like a spread, if you were to put everything into a spreadsheet, all the data into a spreadsheet, it looks like a lone actor who is radicalized by rhetoric from lefty media outlets, and he was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be that guy. But I look back at all the other high profile political assassinations like RFK, JFK. Um, who else has been politically assassinated? I mean,
Abraham
those two
Lincoln.
are the big ones, but there has always been like it's been confirmed the CIA killed JFK. It's been confirmed the CIA killed RFK. It's been confirmed like there. So
Martin Luther King Jr. I know he
yeah,
wasn't a president, but he was politically killed.
he was politically killed, and that's a whole other can of worms too with MLK. Like you're
Who's watched Brandon Herrera's video on it?
uh on dude, I haven't seen that video, but I just mean like from the political standpoint, people think that MLK was killed for reasons very different than the reasons he was actually killed for. But that's a whole other dude. That's a whole other
That's a whole new podcast.
yeah. But that's so I look at those instances, right? There's never been a political assassination of just like, you know what, I feel it in my heart, like Clayton Bixby, like if you got hate in your heart, let it out. Like no one's ever killed a president because they had hate in their heart, they needed to let it out. Right? Like it was the CIA trying to get JFK out of office because they wanted to go to war in Vietnam and fight communism and make money and do all sorts of spook stuff. Same thing with RFK. Same thing with the attack with the attempt on Reagan. It was like, dude, he was coming so heavily against the Soviet Union. It's like, yeah, can't have that. So, do we really want to believe after hundreds of years of MK Ultra, Operation Paperclip, Operation Mockingbird, all these CIA shenanigans that this random 20-year-old kid in a demolition ranch t-shirt was just taking pop shots at a president for funsies?
Oh, definitely not. Wasn't for funsies.
He was just doing it to be edgy and cool on his Discord server.
I'm really curious when it comes out to like what his motive was, and I'm sure we're probably not going to get the full story because it's the federal government, but it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's well, and dude, and even look at the like the Vegas shooting and stuff. Like there are almost every
That
single
Vegas shooting was an M249, not a bump stock.
no, it was an M240. Dude,
M240.
that dog was barking, and it was multiple 240s because there's this thing called talking guns where you have one gun going for a 6 to 9 round burst, and on those like last 3 rounds, the other gun picks up, and you have talking guns, right? Anyways, that's the Vegas shooting. But what I'm saying is, almost every single either assassination, school shooting, mass murder that's happened in the United States has been traced back to a federal agency. Even January 6th, dude, the FBI had their dick all over that. They didn't even put their hand in the cookie jar. Like it was like an American pie, dude. Like a whole thing. FBI.
Absolutely.
So you're really gonna like people are gonna sit there and think, "Wow, I can't believe that some guy would just go and do that." Like, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
Yeah. I see where you're coming from, and it is very plausible.
But, at the end of the day, it really couldn't have turned out better. I mean, aside from the bystanders that were injured and killed, I mean, like, obviously, all the thoughts, all the prayers, having lost family members myself, it's like, dude, like, nothing is more tragic.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in the chat so everybody who's watching, if they can spare a couple extra bucks to go and donate to the firefighter who lost his life during the attempted assassination, I'm going to put his GoFundMe in there so everybody can go and donate and support his family.
Awesome. But yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, it's tragic, it's upsetting, and I think that regardless of the outcome, we need to sit on the fact and digest the fact that someone has, like, there are forces that are out there that do not like Donald J. Trump for whatever reason have taken upon themselves to actually attempt to kill him in this
Yep.
campaign cycle.
It's insane.
Look, the pictures, I'm not going to lie, were pretty awesome. The fact that he got shot in the head and fist pumped his way off stage are pretty awesome. And from a political perspective, like in this election cycle, the man is untouchable.
Oh, he just won the election.
The man's untouchable.
I would be willing to gamble everything I have that President Trump wins the election.
Unless they try and kill him again. Because here's the thing about what happens when you lose everything, you have
I
nothing to
don't care.
lose.
I mean, I think they are. You know, somebody made a good point on Twitter. Somebody commented something that they're gonna slip something into his lemonade and he's gonna drink it and he's gonna have a heart attack and they're gonna say he had a heart attack or something.
Come on, they all know that they're going to spike the fish fillet and Diet Coke.
I didn't know he ate fish fillets. You mean Big Macs?
I think it's a fish fillet. I think that's his sandwich. But I
I've
also
never had
consider,
a fish fillet. I've always been too
dude,
scared
neither
to
have
eat
I.
one.
I
I'm like,
don't know if I trust McDonald's fish as much as I trust the CIA.
I just don't trust it. I don't eat McDonald's anymore, but
But I think, okay, so Trump has this plane. He flies around everywhere. Like, dude, if they really wanted to kill this guy, they have, like, everyone's kind of saying, Alex Jones has mentioned it and a few other people, like, I don't think that this, and I kind of agree with him, I don't think this is the last attempt on Trump.
I
And I
think
think
Trump
that
needs to get
it's
private
only going to get more
security.
brazen.
I I think the best course of action for Trump, and we can chew on this for a couple moments and get your thoughts before we close, before we leave here. But I think Trump needs to have a private security detail. I don't think any government agency could be trusted to protect him anymore.
I wouldn't trust him. And even still, it's like, how do you, like, if I'm, dude, if I, even if I was like a pilot or part of that security detail, if I'm writing the protocol on it at this point, it's like, dude, give me F-16s or F-15s. Like, dude, he's a billionaire. Pay someone to fly F-16s in tandem with your plane everywhere you go. Because, dude, have you, like, so one of the schools that I was able to go to when I was in the military was the man pads, so man portable air defense systems, which is the FIM 92 Stinger missile, which is a heat seeking missile that is man portable that will lock onto aircraft, just like it's the one from Call of Duty. It's the
You
Stinger
were
missile from
telling
Call.
me about that. We talked about that in Oregon.
Yes. Dude, listen, he's got a plane and he flies it everywhere. If the CIA, dude, that's how the CIA and the Mujahideen beat Russia in Afghanistan is with Stinger missiles. If and knowing the capabilities of them without giving any OPSEC over Twitter or X or podcast or whatever, like, dude, those things are real. Those things are out there. The government has them. And if Trump's plane like got a 4 pound burst of C4 to their fuselage, like, you know what I mean?
We
They
just
are
need Elon Musk. You know, we just need Elon Musk to design a special plane for Trump, outfit it to vertical takeoff, and just launch it right into the atmosphere and then fly it through the atmosphere and just not be seen, not be tracked, and just land anywhere.
so you're saying that he needs the SR-71 Blackbird, but outfitted with the X-Men's X-Wing technology, so that way they're like flying invisible and stuff. I
Correct.
agree. I agree. That's really the best course of action.
Yep. Uh, I just hope he starts wearing armor on stage, Trump.
Well, I think that's going to be one of the most baller things that he does moving forward is while his security will be beefed up, really what you got to beef up is your advon. You got to be able to lock down that scene at least 24 to 48 hours before the man steps anywhere. But I think one of the great things that we're going to see from Trump is that it will not deter him in the slightest from being with his constituents, with the voters, from being on the campaign trail. If anything, I think this will motivate him more to dominate.
I agree. I absolutely do agree. I think it would be badass if Trump walked out to RNC with an AR-15 strapped to his chest, and I just think that would be very patriotic. And I think it
Uh,
would send a message to anybody who tried to assassinate him.
well, I mean, it's the second rule of gun safety: stay strapped or get clapped.
Absolutely.
You know, have I told you my rules of gun safety?
Yeah, we talked about it at a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the first rule of gun safety is don't let the government take your guns. Second rule of gun safety, stay strapped or get clapped. There's a few more, but
Those are the
uh,
important ones.
yeah. Well, Kyle, thank you once again. Uh, dude, moving forward, I'm so excited to have you as a host on this podcast. Like, things are just going to be dynamite. For those of you listening, if this is your first time, thank you for turning in. We're very happy that Donald Trump is safe and sound. Again, our hearts go out to the families that have been affected by this mass shooter, except for the mass shooter, or not mass shooter, but the would be assassin. And honestly, man, like there were a lot of things that people can armchair quarterback all day, but at the end of the day, especially to those counter assault team and counter snipers that were there on scene who were able to take those shots, dude, at the end of the day, like Donald Trump is up and he's upright and walking around. So you guys did your job, and that's all you can be asked to do is to do your job. So thank you to those guys. Thank you for all those you who are listening. If you want to support the families that have been affected by the shooting, Kyle dropped the link in the comments. If you want to support the Fear Not Do Right podcast, go to fearnotdoright.com. Kyle and I are launching merch. We got new stuff coming up, and we're gonna have more podcasts in the future with us. Uh, Thanks again, man, and we will see all of you guys in the next podcast. Thanks, man.